Now, the humble gear stick could be less than 10 years away from being resigned to motoring history. Electric cars require no gears and are set to phase out petrol and diesel ones after 2030.
So, is this the next big change in how we learn to drive? Well, a driving instructor from Wolverhampton says she's sticking to teaching manual for now, and we'll have some of your views on this topic coming up after this report from Nick Smith.
We may well be in the midst of a so-called electric revolution, but the process of shifting us all to greener motoring isn't necessarily going to be a smooth journey. For driving instructor Sobia Sheikh from Wolverhampton, for the moment she's more comfortable teaching in manual, but knows she'll have to eventually make the switch to electric.
We should keep teaching in a manual car as long as we've got manual car being produced. Once these are phased out, then we can move according to the market need. I have considered changing into electric car. However, for me, the car needs to go much further. So we need infrastructure to support charging.
But some are keen to ditch manual cars and embrace a gear-free future. Learner Sienna and her instructor Roger are having lessons in an all-electric vehicle. She's among the 1 in 7 young drivers already choosing to learn in cars with no gearbox.
For me personally, I found it quite hard to deal with clutch control. It was a lot for me to think about, making sure I had the right biting point, the right gear. So I found it easier to be able to focus on more what's around me, like meeting traffic, checking around the roundabouts, traffic lights, to deal with that in an automatic car.
The fact that it's an electric drivetrain doesn't really make that much difference to the process of learning, but you do have to think about, charging the car up and things like that. They're usually quieter, so that can have an impact on road safety, but the main bulk of what we do as driving instructors doesn't change.
But motoring experts say the replacement of manual cars on our roads will be gradual rather than immediate.
Even though the cut-off is 2030, we will still have many petrol and diesel cars out there, and they will be the cheaper cars. So some young drivers will stick to that. But there's no doubt the way we learn to drive gradually will be changing, and the days of grinding the clutch and grinding the gears will probably be long gone in 20-30 years.
Here at the British Motor Museum in Gaydon in Warwickshire, I'm inspecting the vehicles in their collection dating back from the 1930s.
You've got a familiar sort of H-pattern gear selector.
When drivers were first required to take a test. They show just how the process of driving our cars has evolved in step with technological advancement.
We've come so far. The original cars were essentially horse-drawn carriages, but with a motor put inside them. You had to manually advance and retard the ignition system to get it to go up and down hills. You had hand-controlled throttles. All of the technology that we've had over the decades since it began has all been leading essentially to removing control from humans to the machine, which has got more and more technologically advanced.
This electrically powered car and this retro tourer may have around 90 years of technological development between them, but some of the fundamentals remain the same, such as steering, braking and acceleration. It's only when these things become fully automated that the fundamentals of driving will change as we know it. Nick Smith, ITV News.
That's about the 15th story this week. This made me feel old.
Very old, very old.
Well, listen, as promised, let's hear some of your views on this and electric cars from our social media pages. And Elaine Torrington says, I don't agree with electric cars. They're bringing them in far too soon. Yes, Elaine, I know where you're coming from. How will people be able to afford them and charge them?
Yes, that's the big thing, isn't it? Affording them. Joy Walkerdine said, I would have an electric car just for less hassle of not having to go to a petrol station and having to put oil in and everything else that a petrol car needs.
Joe Turner told us most cars will be automatic eventually anyway, so this will make things easier for instructors.
Well, Michael O'Brien disagreed. He said automatic driving is lazy.
Don't tell my mum.